Welcome to part 2 of the videos about conditionals, real conditionals, unreal, and wishes. Part 1 covers real conditionals for the present and future. So if you haven't watched that video yet, please go back and watch that video first. This video is going to cover unreal conditionals and wishes. All right, let's get started. Unreal conditionals talk about the present or future. They're also sometimes known as the second conditional. Present or future unreal conditionals speculate about the future, meaning they make a guess about what might happen in the future. However, the situations imagined are usually unlikely or nearly impossible. You might think of this like the lottery conditional, right? What are the chances that you'll win the lottery? Not great, but you can imagine a future where you did win the lottery, and it might sound really good. In the unreal conditional for the present or future, we use simple past tense in the conditional clause. Now, just because we're using simple past tense doesn't mean we're talking about the past. We are actually most likely talking about the future. We're just using the same form of the verb that we use for past tense. In the result clause, we use would, could, should, or might plus the base form of the verb. Let's look at some examples. If I had time off, I would take a vacation. Here's my dependent clause, and here's my independent clause or result clause. Another example, he would quit his job if he won the lottery. If he won the lottery is my conditional clause, and he would quit his job is my result clause. Notice that I'm using simple past tense in the conditional clause. Had, simple past tense, and won, simple past tense. In the result clause, I'm using would plus the base form of the verb. Would take and would quit. Now, let's look at these examples a little bit more closely, right? If I had time off, I would take a vacation. But in reality, I don't have time off, and I won't likely have any time off in the future. So the possibility of this situation happening is unlikely. In the second example, he would quit his job if he won the lottery. However, it's very unlikely that he'll win the lottery, so he probably won't quit his job. The use of the verb to be in conditionals changes. In conditional sentences, unreal conditionals for the present and future, we use were in place of was for all subjects. So normally I would use was for I, for he, she, it, and for singular nouns, but not in the conditional form. Look at this example. If he were here right now, he would help us. So not if he was here right now. Or if I were rich, I would buy a house. Not if I was rich. So no was in the conditional. We use were for all subjects. You might be wondering, well, okay, both the unreal conditional for the future and the real conditional for the future talk about the future. So what's the difference? Well, the real difference between these conditionals is how likely the possibility of the result is. In real conditionals, the possibility of that future coming true is very high. It's very likely that you'll get the result that you're predicting. In unreal conditionals, the possibility is very low. It's almost impossible to get that result. In other words, you're probably not going to get the result that you're predicting. Let's look at these examples. If I had time off, I would take a vacation. And if I have time off, I will take a vacation. For the first example, the possibility that I will have time off is very low. I'm using the unreal conditional for the future here, so this probably won't happen. But in the second example, I'm using the real conditional. So that means that the possibility I'll have time off is very high. That situation is very likely to happen. All right, it's time for some practice. Fill in the blank with the correct form of the verb in parentheses. We're just practicing here with the unreal conditional for the present or future. So go ahead and pause your video and practice. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at the answers together. Number 1, if I had more free time, I would exercise more often, using simple past tense form in the conditional clause here. Number 2, I would answer the phone if he called me. So I need would plus the simple form of the verb here in the result clause. Number 3, I would come to the party if they invited me. Simple past tense here in the conditional clause. And number 4, little tricky, if he were here, he would help us. Don't forget to use were, not was, simple past, but the special form for the conditional of the be verb here for number 4. Number 5, if you left on time, you would not be late. So using would plus the simple form of the verb and then also the negative here. Number 6, if the teacher dismissed class early, oops, I forgot. So also in this number 5, so you can use the contraction there, wouldn't be, and that's fine as well. So for number 6, would be sad. Would be sad. All right, let's talk about the unreal conditional for the past, or the third conditional. The past unreal conditional speculates about the past. In other words, it makes a guess about what might have happened in the past. However, the statement is always untrue according to what actually happened. This is kind of like the time machine conditional. If you had a time machine and you could go back and change the past, how might it be different? What would you have done differently? But since we don't have a time machine yet, we can't actually go back and change the past, so these kinds of predictions are always untrue. In the unreal conditional for the past, we use past perfect, which is had plus the past participle in the conditional clause. And we use would have, could have, should have, or might have, plus the past participle or the third form of the verb in the result clause. Let's look at some examples. If the students had studied more, they would have passed the exam. Here's my conditional clause, and here's my result clause. I wouldn't have broken my arm if I hadn't slipped on the stairs. My conditional clause here, and my result clause here. So take a look at the conditional clauses. You'll notice that they both use past perfect to express the unreal conditional for the past. And then in the result clause, would have passed and wouldn't have broken. Both of these use would plus have plus the past participle of the verb in the result clause. Also notice that these are untrue according to what actually happened. In truth, the students didn't study more and they did not pass the exam. But if I had a time machine and I could go back and change things, maybe they would have passed the exam. In the second example, the truth is I did slip on the stairs and I did break my arms. But if I had a time machine and I could go back, maybe I can change it and prevent myself from slipping on the stairs. All right, time for some practice. So pause your video and fill in the blank with the correct form of the verb in parentheses. All right, welcome back. These are all unreal conditionals, so let's take a look at this practice. Number 1, if you had been late for work, using past perfect in the conditional clause there. Number 2, the school would have canceled classes. So I want to use would plus have plus the third form of the verb here for number 2 in the result clause. Number 3, if I had been invited to the party, I would have come. Would plus have plus the past participle in the result clause. Number 4, the team would have won the game if he had made the last shot. So had made past perfect in the conditional clause there for number 4. Number 5, if I had left work on time, I would have gone to the gym. Use had left, the past perfect, in the conditional clause for number 5. And number 6, if I had missed class on Monday, I would have missed a quiz. So would plus have plus the third form of the verb there in the result clause for number 6. All right, let's also talk a little bit about wishes. When you make a wish, you're also speculating or imagining a different future, present, or past. Therefore, you also use conditional verb tenses to reflect this. For a future wish, use would in the dependent clause. I wish you would help me tomorrow. For a present wish, use the past tense. I wish I knew how to speak Japanese. And for a past wish, use had plus the past participle. I wish I had stayed home today. Here's some practice mixing up a little bit of everything. Go ahead and pause your video to do the practice. Welcome back. Number 1, we will stay home tomorrow if the snow continues all night. This is the first conditional, so I need future tense in my result clause. Number 2, he would buy a new car if he had money. So this is going to be the second conditional, and I need would buy in my result clause. Number 3, if you heat ice, it melts. This is the 0 condition, the condition of fact. So I'm going to use simple present there for my result clause. And number 4, I would study for the quiz if I were you. So there's that tricky be verb for the second unreal conditional. Want to use simple past tense there, but use the were form instead of was for the be verb. And number 5, if I had had enough time, I would have cleaned the basement. And yes, that is correct, had. So this is the unreal conditional for the past, or the third conditional. So I need past perfect in my conditional clause. And had is my helping verb, but it's also the third form of the verb have. So using had is actually correct because it's both the helping verb and the third form of the verb. And number 6, if I woke up earlier, I would not be late for work. So here we have the second conditional, the unreal conditional for the future. I need simple past tense in my conditional clause. All right, a little bit more practice. This time, read the pairs of sentences and decide which sentence is correct. So go ahead and pause your video. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at these pairs of sentences. For number 1, B is correct. Saba won't go to the dance unless you ask her. So here, this is the first conditional. I need simple present tense in my conditional clause. Number 2, B is also the correct answer. If you worked harder, you would earn more money. So this is the second conditional, the unreal conditional for the future. That means I need would plus the simple form of the verb in the result clause. And number 3, for this wish, this is a past wish, so I need had called past perfect in this verb tense for this wish. Number 4, A is correct. My kids would not eat broccoli even if I covered it in cheese. So for the unreal conditional for the future, I only need would in my result clause, not in my conditional clause. And number 5, B is correct. I would have cleaned the house if I had known you were coming. So same thing here for the third conditional or the unreal past conditional. I only need would plus have in the result clause, not in the conditional clause. And number 6 If it rains, I always bring an umbrella. So always tells me that this is a fact. This is what always happens. So I want the 0 conditional here. All right, that is the end of part 2 of conditionals. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns, please send me an email, post to the discussion board, or come see me during office hours.